Good day. This is John Satterfield from Dan Best Racing Carburetor. Today I want to speak about the gaskets that we use and have used, and why we brought them in the house to CNC, and I'm going to take some pictures of the process and the reason for it. I kind of apologize that our gaskets are sometimes twice or more the price of almost anybody else's gaskets, but we put a lot of energy in trying to save customer time, money, and races, and we keep evolving the gasket based on the current problems. And like most of the parts in the carburetor, I've been less concerned about cost, although at this point people seem to be more price conscious than I would choose them to be. But I've been trying to choose long-term service, product service, and performance service over the cost of the items, and gaskets would be one of those items. So how we got, and I tried to put everything out in front of me here so you can see it. For many years we used to use these Teflon orange die-cut gaskets. In reference to the die-cut and a lot of things about these, I liked a lot over some of the other gaskets, even though at the time these were still 2 times what the normal Holley replacement gasket was. But this is what our choice of gaskets were. This material, both for the metering block, which this is, to the main body, and also for the float ball. I don't have any of those left to show you. It's been long since deleted. But we're at a divisional race in upstate New York. One of my friend customers, Sal Biondo, was driving the car, and Billy Mayo owned it. And that very gasket, this isn't the gasket, but this is an example, had delaminated. VP had changed their fuel mix, and we had a pretty good stint of long time without any issues. This gasket, which shows the delamination, was only in the engine maybe 20 minutes to 30 minutes, and shows you how fast some of those very aggressive VP fuels will work on the glue and the lamination. And eventually what happens is when they delaminate, they'll take the glue from the layers and completely move the glue, so the fuel just runs straight through the carburetor. That's what happened. Billy called me over and said, "John, I see fuel coming running out of the carburetor into the plenum." Gosh, he was right. I looked down the carburetor and it was just pouring into the plenum. So I had other of these particular gaskets with me at the race. We swapped them out, and that started the quest on trying to find materials and a process that would satisfy all of the needs. So the next one we did is we actually ordered gaskets in with a different material. Die cut. These did pretty good, but if you noticed right around the holes, I'm going to try to hold the picture right there, when the die comes in, it almost marries some of the holes. So we had a problem with these when they would get used a couple of times and they would begin to compress, that the material between the holes would give the issue, even though the way that they're formed, it's a composite material, so it's not laminated and glued like the orange gasket. This is all interwoven material, which is, drove the cost up 2 times just to get the different material so that it would not delaminate from the different fuels. Then we had to pay for a die. Then we didn't like the die. As you can see, try to get it a little closer here so you can see the holes there. How close to get. I turn it over, the hole on the other side is a little different because it's only pinching to one side. So the next process was to begin to machine them in-house. And I say machine them, we use our CNC machines to machine them. But if you can see the holes, there's a little bit of furring that comes with the machining process. We usually clean it off with a parking knife. But if you look at all the holes, There's no over compression through the holes. We use it same woven material, so you can't delaminate it. So far we've not had a fuel service issue, which means that there's not been a fuel, even no matter how aggressive the fuel might be, that's taken and delaminated the composite material apart from itself. A swedge of the material looks like this. Now this we buy in a roll, 75 feet long, I believe it's what it comes in. And one roll is like $530 US, just to buy a roll of material before we start machining it. So when we start to machine it, the first thing we do is we cut all the inside pieces. I got like one of the blanks, which we're doing right now. You can see there's a lot of the little feathering edges that have to be, so to speak, deburred or defeathered. So we make 3 at a time. So all the interior holes are made, and we do it right in the CNC. Like I say, when I'm done with the video, I'm going to add some pictures of the CNC process along the way. Then we clean this off with a pocket knife or a sharp edge razor or something, just to get the edges off of it. And that leaves us with the gasket. It looks like this when we cut the outside, which I'll show you again in just a little bit. Now we try to make a couple years worth, which is a few hundred at a time. And the people who are really, there's a couple out that I know are always interested in quality, because the call-up is one customer from England, he'll know what I'm saying, called up and just bought gaskets soon. Now I know a customer really is interested in having the best. To ship gaskets from here because of the difference in the quality, even though they're more expensive, all the way to England, you know that person's interested in only the best. We noticed that as we increased the quality of the gaskets, both in the float bowl, I just showed you the metering block gaskets, but here's a die cut float bowl gasket, and you see how close the holes get. Once again, I'm not too fond of it. We find that when we first started doing carburetors, which is a long time ago, people used to strip out the carburetor housing when they over tighten the float bowl screws. Well, now over time, what ends up happening with the billet carburetors and the better fasteners, people torque them down until it actually will spit the float bowl gasket out. There's so much compression force on the gasket that it'll actually crush the gasket most of the time right through the accelerator pump squirtle hole. It just crushes it right out. So there's 1 or 2 tightenings and the gasket is completely squeezed out from between the float bowl and the metering block. So we started making our gaskets here. Once again, same process. This is one of the Pro Stock metering block float bowl gaskets. But you see we added material around the accelerator pump squirter, so it would be less likely to squeeze out. But I have to laugh. People still find a way, even here on the, this would be the passenger side, jets are in the back. We made sure there's enough material, but even with that much extra material, they'll get in there and just tighten it so much. So the next thing is to make them out of Teflon. We haven't had anyone tighten this to the point where it's squeezed out yet. The next thing that squeezes out from over tightening are the little Teflon washers underneath the heads of the fasteners for the float bowls. It's just funny, these have so much strength now that you can't crush these out. So the next thing in line that crushes out is the Teflon washers that are underneath the heads of the bolt. So I just laughed at people. It's going to be like a big torque wrench. The drawback to the Teflon float bowl gasket is on the embossed float bowls. Our billet float bowls have a smooth, flat surface. So when you squeeze that between the gasket between the float bowl and the metering block, there's nothing there to create a problem. But when you use the new Teflon gaskets on the embossed ones, well, they'll squeeze down, but then they leave a space between the embossing. Sometimes it'll when the accelerator pump actuates, it'll squeeze a little bit of fuel out here. So what we end up having to do is face off some of the embossing. We use literally a belt sander or a flat plate with some sandpaper on it, and we take the, like 50% of the embossing off. And once we do that, the new Teflon gaskets service really well. And I expect the Teflon gaskets are going to be like a, forever kind of gasket. We don't sell that much, because when we try to make the parts better, they last so much longer. And we notice that people don't call us up because they had these kinds of issues. So that's what adds long-term service and quality to the product, is the lack of problems. And sometimes the customer doesn't realize that he's not having problems when the other person is. If you have gasket problems in a carburetor, I mean, you have either air leaks or fuel leaks. Both are not good when you're adjusting things, and it happens over time. So then they'll change out gaskets, and they'll wonder why, geez, well, why is it running different? All I did was change gaskets. They didn't change jets. Well, the other gaskets were internally leaking so much that it was, adding or taking away from the fuel delivery. So there's just so many parts of the products that I want to do, and I understand that our base gasket, both the float bowl and the metering block gaskets, go for $8 a piece US at this time. And I know that's expensive, but for the time and energy it takes to make them, for the materials and stuff, in order for a customer to have a problem, we're adding it into the carburetor at no additional fee. But I want you to realize how much time and energy that goes into simply making gaskets for these things. So if you have any further questions about our gaskets or any service parts, please let me know below. And I hope you guys are having a great day. Thank you very much.